including our industry, that people want to work from home. But it doesn't help them in the long run. They need to interact with their colleagues in the office. It helps them solve the problems faster. It helps them learn new things from each other. And so many things, right? And they also want to change. Sitting at home, working 9 hours continuously, I think it's not good. So, the village probably, of course, there could be a balance. There are people in TCS I can quote that there are people in women who work for a very long time from home, pre-COVID. I'm not talking about post-COVID or during COVID. When there are genuine reasons, the supervisor and the HR team decide what's best for the individual. So it is case by case standard and also type of role, etc. And the other thing is about development, building the right skills. Celebrate International Women's Day 2025. I think rightly they use the word celebration. Use the word celebration. I think it's like matter to celebrate definitely. When women rise, the world rises with them. I think we have seen the Western world how it has risen. I think there are a lot of talk about India in the report by Dr. India. I think very important statistics which has been brought out. Probably should have taken more time and borrowed my time, spoken a little bit more about the report. So that's what I was feeling about from the numbers. I would like to thank Marina, President of MMA, Dr. Suresh Ramanan, Dean, Great Institute of Management, and of course Group Captain J. Kumar for inviting me to share my thoughts on this highly relevant theme. Women at work, powering progress, shaping the future. I think it's a very apt title that my speakers before talked about. Powering progress and shaping the future. My compliments to the Great Lake Institute of Management on launch of the research report. It's both timely and relevant. Timely and relevant because I add to what Dr. Suresh Ramanan mentioned about the pendulum swung to okism and now the anti-okism pendulum swinging back. I think it's probably the right time to look at this report and see how we can leverage this together. I strongly believe that this report is not just about identifying barriers, but also about offering actionable solutions. Key takeaways from this report will be instrumental in understanding how we can enhance gender diversity, improve recruitment policies, create flexible work environments, and most importantly, challenge the cultural and societal norms that limit women's potential. I urge everyone here to engage with the findings and consider how they can be applied in your own organizations to drive meaningful change. I am sure the panel will discuss in detail many of these issues. I think a lot of metrics are brought about by Dr. Vidya. I think he talked about 30%, 89 million, 19 million, all of these. I think very important to understand. And she mentioned about a lot of job creation. Many of the forums, in fact, we discussed with the government also. It's all about creating more. And automatically, a lot of these things we can solve. In thesis also, when we talk about how we are going to do in the future, most important thing is look at growth.
No.
When things grow, automatically everything will happen. So I think that is what we need to look at, how to make for ourselves, our organizations, and the country as well. Who said change happens naturally? Progress is not automatic. It is intentional.
I will try and see what you have answered, and some of it is right. Some of it is somewhere in the middle. We'll see how it goes. So if we can put up the PPT. So what I'll do is I'll just take you through the key findings of the report. There are a lot of other findings which you will see in the actual written copy of the report. Okay, so we have only 10 minutes. I'll just take you through the quickly what we say. So in last few years, there has been a significant gain in terms of women employment in urban. So please remember, we are talking only about urban India right now and not rural. Traditionally, in urban India, employment of women has been lower than in rural areas because in rural, a lot of employment is in farm and related sectors. So there is a 10% increase in last, from 2017-18, and in overall, but as well as in every sub-age group. So if you see in women in 20s, women in 30s, women in 40s, in 50s, in every age group there has been an increase. Okay, so that's a big positive, of course. However, despite this increase, urban employment of women remains close to 30% and not optimistic 40% that I think the majority of the audience thought. Generally what happens, we know only people who are similar to us, and if our friends work, we stop that and we think, majority else are also working. But measured employment and women employment, whatever is measured, there is underestimation bias, because a lot of women, if they are home based, if they are doing some earning, they don't record in a survey, they don't say I'm working. Okay, so there is definitely underestimation bias, but nonetheless it is only close to 30%. In urban India, however, there are better quality jobs and people or women earn more than in rural India. So even though lesser work, they are essentially many more. Half of them are in regular salary employment. So that's definitely much better. Within the different age groups, around 38% in their 40s. So you can see, you can relate easily as the children grow up and so on, more women can join workforce. So women who are in their 40s essentially have a higher employment rate than the rest of the age groups, even though in every age group we have seen the increase in participation of women. But if only 30% are right now employed, and which is an improvement, that nonetheless means large number of women remain outside the workforce. Okay? And if we try to put a number, because generally people like to remember it in terms of absolute numbers, how much that comes to, it is essentially around 89 million only in urban India, the women who are not in workforce. So if we compare to other countries, in India we are saying 30%, in the rest of the world, even in developing countries, 60%, 70% women work. Okay. So if you see, that means essentially the entire population of France, UK, Germany, or 3 times Australia. We are talking only about women and women only in urban India, right? And if we see out of these, how many are highly educated, that is at least graduates and above, there are 19 million women in urban India who are graduates and above are not currently in employment. Okay, so there is a lot of untapped potential, of course for women itself, for their employment, but also for the economy. So if I see from the macro angle, in general, the numbers are put out in various reports, like if all these women work, how much GDP will increase and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of untapped potential to it. However, now, and positive thing is, the proportion of women working can significantly go up further, because in education, we see now there is gender parity. Even if you see, in fact, this proportion is slightly higher only for women who are in age group. But you can see even in early 20s, men and women, 30% of them are still in higher education. So there is almost complete, on an average, gender parity in urban India as far as education levels go. Second positive thing, positive from the labor market perspective, is women are getting married, women, and that means men also, are getting married later. So if you see in 1990-2000, around 60% of, 61-62% of women in the age group of 20 to 24 were married. That proportion is significantly down now to less than 40%. Marriage nonetheless remains universal in India. You can see in 30s almost the entire, nearly everyone is married. But nonetheless, if the marriage is delayed and the education is rising, single women have much more opportunity to participate in the labor market and have wholesome jobs before they start their families. Okay, which is of course is going to be a big positive. So these are positive sides, progress side, and of course Mr. Suresham will speak a lot about, I suppose, IT and how at the starting level the employment of women is 40% plus. And Mr. Mahalingam spoke about women at the higher leadership level and how much progress. He said he hasn't seen our report, but our report exactly starts with that. That at the political leadership, presidents, prime ministers, finance ministers, lot of state chief ministers, all of them have been women, but how that has not translated into at the lower levels in terms of empowerment. However, we also asked you a question about the unemployment rates and who you think between men and women have the higher unemployment rates among young adults. So here you go. majority of us thought it is women unemployment rates which are higher. In reality, men unemployment rates are higher in 20s. So what that suggests? It suggests that we have to create jobs for both women and men, right? But you were partly right. If you had considered in your mind only about highly educated workforce, then it reverses, that is women unemployment is higher than the men unemployment. So it's okay, you were right also partly and you are wrong. Okay, so it depends on whether we look at the overall picture or we look at only high. But whichever graph we look at, in early 20s, unemployment rates are high, right? And that means we need simply much more quality jobs. And you know, a lot of corporates are there, and we know very well, and there are some results in the report where we show that essentially, unless the quality job creation increases massively, it will be very difficult for women employment to increase significantly. Okay? And why that is the case? Because if you see, even though the men unemployment is higher in 20s, virtually every man is in employment when it comes to the, by late 20s, one has to get married, and that is one has to have some earning because there is a still male breadwinner norm that men have to work, and that means finally whatever job is available, men take. That means men employment becomes nearly 100% if you see, right? So because this now we say there are norms for women, there are strong norms for men as well, right? So if so we have to accept that, and since that is the case, women's job really cannot come at the expense of men, right? We have to have jobs for both.